Hello everyone, today we're working on a 2013 Chevrolet Spark and we're doing a transmission flush on it. First item you're going to need for that is the transmission gasket. The next item you'll need is the transmission filter. And both of these are GM products, they're AC Delcos. I've checked the aftermarket, there's really not much for aftermarket out there, and you're going to have close to $100 in these two pieces to start with, which is kind of outrageous, but hey, you got to go through GM. But we're going to, first off, we're going to check the fluid level before we start the transmission drain and flush procedure, just to see where it's at and also to see what the fluid looks like. So we're going to show you that procedure and we'll get started with that.
Okay, we're underneath the car. This here's your transmission pan. There's two plugs in it, one here and one here. The one with the Allen head, it's a 5mm. That's the one you take out with the car running, and we should just have the oil dribbling out of that when we take that plug out. And that'll tell us what that oil looks like too, that original oil. This car has about 55,000 miles on it. The other thing is the car needs to be level when you do this. So if you're going to jack up just the front end, you got to jack up the back end the same amount. So you got to have it level to do this check. And right there it should just dribble out, and that stuff looks absolutely horrible. That should be a nice cherry red color. And that stuff is just black. It's definitely past time to do that. Okay, so that's how you check the level of the fluid, and now we're going to go ahead and take that pan down. We'll be back with you.
The fluid we're going to be using today is AMSOIL synthetic, low viscosity transmission fluid. That's what this transmission calls for. It's the AMSOIL Signature Series. It's a chemically engineered synthetic. This will give you much longer transmission life out of this. And kind of show you the difference here between the old oil and what it should look like. You can see a stark difference there in the color. Brand new fluid is a nice cherry red color. That fluid's been in there way too long. The other thing too, when you check this fluid level, you're supposed to have it up to about 100 degrees. So that's just another piece of information there for checking that fluid level. But that gives you some idea. Stuff's a mess. We're going to go ahead and proceed.
Okay, we're going to take out the drain plug here. Get that fluid draining out. There we go. Then we're going to take the pan bolts out, and we'll pull down the filter and get that cleaned and put back up. The head of this is a 13mm on that plug. And then for the pan bolts, it's 10mm. Right here's the oil level with the engine running. That's where it's going to dribble out of. That's that plug we took out earlier right there. So that gives you some idea of the level of the fluid in the tranny. Okay, next thing is to pull off that filter and clean it up. Okay, we're ready to take this filter down, and basically it just has an O-ring up there holding it in. So just wiggle it, bring it down. You can see right here is the O-ring that holds it right in there in that bore. Okay, filter comes down. Filter's absolutely filthy and dirty. And we're going to clean up all the surface area right here around where that gasket goes. If there's any spots that need touching up or cleaning up, now's the time to do it. And to clean up that gasket area, get that all ready to go. And then we'll be ready to put that new filter in. I'm going to grab that here. And there's two bolts right here. You can kind of see where the spot is for them bolts. Also a note here, this new filter comes from GM. They overcharge you for the filter and they do not put the O-ring on. So in this case, I have a good selection of O-rings. I got a Viton number 118, industry standard number 118 O-ring for that. Okay, and we're going to put that new filter up in there. And there it is. Okay. Next thing we'll do is put up the pan and gasket, and then we're going to refill the tranny and we'll start to flush. We'll get back with you.
Go.
Okay, the next step is to clean up the pan. We're going to get rid of that old gasket. There's 4 magnets in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those magnets have fuzz and garbage on from the initial break-in and any wear metals that are in that transmission. So we want to get that dirt load out of that transmission. So we're going to take those magnets out one at a time. And the best way to clean them is to, I take a towel and wipe off as much of that magnetic fuzz as I can. And get rid of all that I can onto that rag. And then I shoot it with some ether. I use starting fluid. Make sure there's no sparks around, nobody's smoking, or you're going to have fire. And then I hit it with compressed air. And what that'll do is blow off the rest of that fine magnetic dust that's on it. And when you're all done, the magnet's just like a new one. And set that aside, do the other 3, clean up that pan completely, get all the dirt load out of it, and then we'll go back up with a new transmission pan gasket.
Okay, what I did here with this pan gasket, that pan goes on kind of on an angle and that gasket wants to slide off. So I took a couple of the bolts, put them in here and hold them with your hands, and then go up. That'll kind of help hold that gasket in place for you. And go ahead and start your bolts. But each of those nuts, or I should say the bolts that we're putting in here, they get 62 inch-pounds of torque. They're very small bolts, so don't neglect to use a torque wrench on them and get them torqued right. Once you get those first 2 in, then you can go through and kind of see, make sure that gasket's in place where it needs to be, and put the rest of the bolts in. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we'll be back with you. All right, we're going to go ahead and snug these up, and then we'll torque them. And again, these are going to get about 62 inch-pounds of torque. We're going to put the drain plug in, and that gets torqued to about 18 foot-pounds, which is about 216 inch-pounds. And torque that on in there. And then also this check plug, we're going to put that in for now to do the flush, because initially we're going to put probably more fluid in for the flush to do the flush. So we're going to put that in so that it don't leak out on us during the flush. And then after we get done with the flush, we'll take it back out for checking the fluid level when we're all done. So that's pretty much it for the pan. We'll go around and torque all these and we'll be back with you. Okay, we need to remove the air filter box and this intake and get that up out of the way. There's a plug to fill the transmission down below, and we got to get this out of the way to get at it. First thing we're going to do is unplug this mass airflow sensor here and basically pry back on that little gray piece. And then there's a tab right there you can squeeze down with your thumb and unplug it. And then there's a clamp right here, and that's a 6mm. Take that loose, and that's out of the way. There's one other thing right over here. There's a plastic keeper for that intake, and we want to pop that up and out of the way. There it comes. Okay. And then there's 4 bolts we got to take out. There's one right here. It's a 10mm head. And that allows that whole thing to come loose. Okay, and then we got one here, and there's one right down here. So we get them bolts all out. And then we should be able to take that intake hose off and pull that up and out, and we can set that aside. Okay. And then we've got to find that little plug. It's kind of hard to see. I think what we're going to do is take a break, get some light on it, and I'll show you where that plug's at. Okay, we're coming in to get that drain plug out, and we're right between, just kind of follow, you can see there's a hex head plug down there. Kind of, if you look right there at the end of my socket, you can kind of see it real well. But it's, I believe it's a 15mm. Take a look here. Yes, it's a 15mm. And you're going to go down with the universal, and you can kind of see right there where it's at. I'm going right down on it. Okay. And I've already loosened the top of it up a little bit. and we can unscrew it. And that gives you access to fill that transmission. You can see that little plug down there. I got to get him knocked out of there so I can put a funnel or a hose or something down there to get the fluid in. So it gives you some idea where that's at and how to fill that tranny. Okay, right there between the right side of the screen there is the radiator hose, and at the left side there you see the transmission shift cable. You can see where I took that plug out. There's a hole right there kind of in the center of the screen. Now, they didn't make this easy to fill that tranny, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use some 1/2-inch poly tubing. Just you can get it at any of your home stores. And that poly tubing that I'm going to use, this is basically get a brand new piece, a clean piece, and that'll thread right into that hole. Okay, and that'll give you a way to put a funnel up here higher and be able to fill it without making a mess out of everything. So I'll show you that procedure here. Okay, here we go. Go down in, and I'm just going to start screwing that into that, in where that hole was at. And just turn it in far enough so that the end of that hose is in. Like I say, it'll thread in and it'll stay there. Okay, you can tug on it and it'll stay put. Okay, now we can go ahead and put that filter back on, because we have to have, when we run this for this flush, we're going to have the mass airflow sensor hooked up. And we can set this right back in place and plug in our sensor. And basically what I've done here is I found a piece of tubing that can go over top of that snugly, and I can fill my transmission from there. So it kind of gives you some idea to make this easier to do that flush and to refill that tranny. Okay, there's 2 transmission cooler lines here. We're at the radiator, and we're going to take this top one off right here, and then we're going to put a poly hose on, and that's where we're going to take fluid when we start it up to do the flush to go to our drain pan. So there's a little plastic keeper right there. We get that out of the way. Another little plastic piece we slide down. And they make a tool. This is called a Jiffy Tight connector. And it's got a little snap ring in there. I don't know if you can see it or not. And there's actually 3 grooves cut around, or 3 slots cut in that groove around there. Now this Jiffy Tight tool, they're about 30-40 bucks. And sometimes they work pretty good, sometimes they don't. But what they do is they go in and expand out that little snap ring. I don't know if you can see that pushing out on it. And then it allows you to pull out the line. Okay? And sometimes it works really good, and sometimes it don't work so good. Depends on how much room you've got to maneuver your hands, because you got to keep it turned and pull at the same time. Now, most of you aren't going to have that tool, so what I usually do is I take an O-ring pick. I got a corkscrew O-ring pick, and I'll take and put my finger on the bottom side, and I'll work it off. Okay, and I'll take that little clip out. Okay, do not lose that clip, because GM does not sell that separate. Okay, and set that somewhere safe. And then we can go ahead, and I usually put a line underneath it because there's going to be some fluid that may come out. And we work that out. Okay, now this is the line going back to the transmission. The fluid's going to flow in that bottom, up through the cooler, and out right here where my finger's at. Now the snout of this is 3/8 of an inch. And what I'm going to do is take 3/8 poly tubing. There's an O-ring inside this fitting right here that seals right on the snout, right here about where my finger's at. Okay, and that O-ring will fit and seal right there in that poly tubing. And again, you can get this poly tubing at any of the home stores. It's a 3/8 OD. And basically you just push it in gently, and it'll go right over that O-ring, and it'll give you a positive seal so you aren't leaking fluid into your engine compartment. So that gives you some idea how to hook that all up. Okay, next thing is filling the transmission, and we'll start the flush. Okay, we're going to fill this transmission up. Now if you go to my website, fluidcapacity.com, and look this car up, the total fill on this is 5 quarts. Okay, so that's what we're going to put in, and depending, you've seen how dirty this fluid is, and when the fluid is that dirty, sometimes it takes more to do a flush. And I'm going to start with the 5 quarts. It may take me 7 quarts, it might take me 10 quarts for this fluid to come clean out of that transmission cooler line. But what we're doing is flushing out basically the torque converter and all that, and getting rid of the fluid that's in the torque converter. We'll get a more complete flush than just pulling the pan. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and fill this up, and I move this hose over to the kind of hold everything nice and straight for me right here. And the transmission is vented, so as we put this in, it should allow air to escape through that vent on the transmission.
like my funnel's leaking a little bit. There's a groove in the side of the funnel, but we got 4 quarts in there. We're going to add 1 more quart and then we're going to start the flush. Okay, we've got the hose hooked up. That hose is run out here to our drain pan. And go ahead and start it up. There comes the fluid. Stuff looks like waste oil. If it starts sputtering, just shut it off. It just means that it's sucking dry the pan. We can fill it back up again and start over. We're going to go until we see a good color change. And this one, it might take a couple times. It's starting to lighten up a little bit, but it's still pretty dark. Again, we started with 5 quarts. Put 5 quarts in the transmission before we started the flush. It's starting to get a little bit of a red tinge to it, but we're not there yet. It's starting to change color. Looking a whole lot better than what we started with. Shut it off, starting to get some bubbles. You start to see it sputtering like that, shut it off, and then we can refill it again and keep going until we get a nice color. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, we've added, this time I added 4 more quarts of fresh transmission fluid to the transmission. We're going to start it up, and I'm going to go until I see a nice, nice cherry red color here. Go ahead and start it. It's looking a lot better. The dirtier they are, the more it takes for them to come clean. This one here is starting to turn to a nice cherry red now. Okay, this is the point where I'm going to stop. Go ahead and stop it. Because we got the nice cherry red color we're looking for. I'm very confident we got a majority of that old fluid out. Got the torque converter cleaned out. Gets that nasty stuff out of that transmission. Okay, now there's 3 slots. We got the transmission flushed, and we took the tube out. Now this little clip here, we got to put that back on. And what we're going to do is we're going to bridge one of those slots in that groove. Okay, and you got to hang on to it and bridge one of the slots. So basically, I got one slot right down here, but at the end of my finger, it's kind of in the middle of that clip. And what I do is just snap it on, and it'll stay put. Okay, then all you have to do is take this line, and that clip will get pushed by this ramp, and it'll lock on the back side of that ramp. So just push it in like that, and grab it, make sure it's snug. Okay, then we can put these little keepers back up in, and that's it for the cooler line. Okay, we're getting ready to check the fluid level here, and we do it with it running. But before we start it, we want to make sure we get enough fluid in there that there should be some running out, which there is.
It means we got enough to start it. So go ahead and start it. And we'll take this plug out again. And we'll let that run out until it just dribbles, and that'll be at the right level. Then we'll take the car for a drive and get it up to at least 100 degrees, and we'll recheck it again because that fluid's going to expand a little bit as it heats up. So right there, it's just starting to get down to almost a dribble. And let it go a little bit more because the tranny pan's still cold, the fluid's still cold. And again, this check is done with the vehicle level. You got to have it level, front to back. Okay, the drips are slowing down. We're getting down to about where we want it. Down to a few drips a second. Okay, I'm going to call that good about right there. We're going to put this plug back in. That gets 18 foot-pounds of torque. And then I'm going to show you where the fill plug and all that goes back in, the torque on that. And that's going to be about it for this video. Okay, we're going to take off the funnel and get that out of the way, and then we're going to take that whole air cleaner assembly back out, and we're going to put the plug back in down below at the bottom of this tube. So we'll unhook that mass airflow sensor, take this up and out of the way, and then just unscrew that tube from down there at the transmission fill. And then again, we're going to put that plug in. It's a 15mm head. We're going to torque it to about 18 foot-pounds. Okay, and then we're going to take the car for a drive, and we're going to get warmed up and recheck that fluid level. And it should just dribble out of there when it's up to temp, say 100, 120 degrees. And that's pretty much it for this video. I want to thank you for watching it, and have a great day.
Thank you for watching my video. Be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe to my channel at youtube.com/c/Donsoil. I'd like to introduce you to Amsoil Synthetic Lubricants. We have the most complete line of synthetic lubricants on the market that offer you greatly reduced wear, extended drain intervals, longer equipment life. You can check that out at my website, donsoil.com. I also have a website for looking up fluid capacities. It's fluidcapacity.com. You can go there and print off the capacity of your engine oil, cooling system, transmission, transfer case, differentials. Be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/DonSyntheticLubes. Thank you, and have a great day.